My name is Mark Salazar. Once again, I just wanted to introduce myself and show you guys a little bit more about the game of chess, simply because I'm a firm believer, and I say it repeatedly, that the similarities about how the game of life is very much like the game of chess, and how it always requires that we make the right moves. And so, that being said, I always like to sit back and give a lot of great thought as to weighing out the consequences and the benefits of the decisions and the decisions and the choices in which we make. I wanted to bring a different type of chessboard here. I brought my own personal chessboard, and it was a chessboard in which I've been saving up for. But I think it's a very beautiful chessboard. I'll lift up this glass set just real quick so that you guys can get a close up of the battlefield. So right there is what you see, the battlefield, like the terrain, and you have like the four castles, and so like with the clear glass right here, and so when you're playing on it, you can also see the battlefield on the bottom. As you guys continue to play, and the pieces are very fascinating because, like for example, this is your castle here, and this is also your knight, which is your horse. And I think, I don't want to drop this over the glass, but once you guys kind of get a little bit closer look at some of the pieces, they have some really nice chessboards at the chessboard at the mall. That's where I caught this one at, and this is actually the bishop right here, and the queen, who again, as I always emphasize, is the strongest piece on the board. This is actually the queen, and it has a lot of good detail on a lot of the pieces. And this one right here is your king. And so the other ones are right up here, which are your foot soldiers, which are just the ones on the front line. You got the gold, and then you also have the silver and black. And so that being said, I wanted to kind of get a little bit more in depth as far as like talking about the importance of moving with purpose, always having a reason as to why you're moving certain pieces, as to, if I'm moving this here, it's simply because I'm opening up this lane right here for my bishop here, and you always want to make sure that, you fight for the center, these, these front four squares right here, that's considered the center of the battlefield. And so if you get an opportunity, what you want to do is you're going to want to advance both of your pawns, to kind of secure these two, these four squares here. Because when you control the center of the board, you control the game. And so if we had a scenario to where it was something to this effect, then you would have the white right here would actually be more advanced, because it kind of puts this in a position to where now you're fighting your opponent and in their own backyard, as opposed to them coming over on this side of the wall. And so it also secures any kind of movement from this lane here, because for example, it couldn't move here because of the pawn here, it couldn't move here because of the pawn here. And so you could come right here and put me in check. However, I can turn around and just put a pawn right here in front of you. So you always want to make sure that you try to secure the first four squares in the center of the game. And in addition to that, like the ones that advance, the as far as above the enemy line, like that those are the ones that are going to be able to win more of you know the different games and the different tactics in which they all develop. You want to develop all the pieces. So for example, You know, if you could, you want to make sure that you not only try to fight for these four squares, but you also want to make sure that you bring your knights out, because otherwise, you want to also bring your knights out. Sorry about that. And the reason being, I mean, is simply to kind of secure that front part of that battlefield right there. You know, and I know I showed you guys a couple of different strategies and a couple of the other different videos with the 2 and 3 different moves, and also with the 4. But there was another move in which, say, let's say, for example, this bishop is out of the way, and you have your king and you have your castle here. The best thing to do is to turn around and castle. You can castle as long as you haven't moved your king, and as long as you haven't moved your castle, then you can turn around and you can castle, because now, instead of having your king in the center where your opponent can either come from the center, it can come from the side, or it can come from this side. However, once you castle and you come right here, you kind of put yourself in a position to where now you're in the corner, to where now the only way in which your enemy can actually get at you is through coming at you at one angle. It's kind of like, when I go to a restaurant myself, like, I always have a tendency of always sitting in the corner and looking at the front door, so I can always see who's coming in, and it's just a habit in which I've gotten into, as far as that goes. But you wanna make sure is that you answer all the threats. Like, if there's another move, maybe, let's say, for example, let's say this knight is over here, and what the knight is now doing, it's in a position to where it's threatening my pawn here, and it's threatening my pawn here, and that's pretty much about it. And so you want to answer that with the response. You, of course, always want to try to be the one that takes the initiative. However, so you would want to respond by doing something like this, by putting the pawn there, because now you threaten the knight into where he goes on defense. So he's going to have to back it up a little bit before he gets caught up right there with the pawn. um, this one, let's see, as far as like the queen, as I say, like, it's the most strongest piece on the board, and being that she can pretty much go anyway, and the key of the game is not to necessarily wipe out one's entire army, but it's more so to put the check. I'm sorry, put the the king right here. Put it in checkmate. You want to put it in a position to where it cannot move. And once it cannot move, let's just say, for example, um, we had the queen over here, or something like that, to where the queen was here, but yet it's protected, maybe, let's just say, by a bishop, and the bishop right here would be protecting the queen, to where the king is now in checkmate, because the king can't move here, can't move there, can't move there. And so that's what you want to do. It's not the key of the game is not to wipe out one's entire army, but to just put the king in checkmate. Using whatever pieces in which you have, because the back pieces back here, the the castle, the knight, the bishop, you know, they're pretty much kind of in the sidelines, waiting to engage in more, whether it, but it's always important to take the initiative when doing so. And you always want to have a plan, just like in life. If you fail to plan, then plan to fail, as they say. And so you always want to have a plan in place, and always make sure that you take the initiative so that you can control the open lines. Say, for example, if this pawn was here, and you have maybe this line right here. See, because the rooks, the castles, they're kind of like dead weight back here for the most part, simply because they can't move. You know, if let's just say let's say the knight the knight was right there, and he can't move here, so it's kind of just sitting there waiting for its opportunity to engage in war. So if this is out of the way, for example, then you can turn around and you can control this lane here. Oh, I'm sorry. Damn, I'm sorry. I'm I'm not used to being talking to an audience that isn't there, so it's a little nerve wracking. I'm not nervous to be on camera. I've spoken, time and again, but when you're talking to an audience that you can't see, it's unfamiliar territory, as I was explaining to one of my coworkers. But but no, the thing is that I'm just gonna keep it real and be myself and just show you guys the that we can make some mistakes along the way, but it's always nice to go back and just be yourself and acknowledge that and realize where you went wrong and things of that nature. So I would like to offer an opportunity for anybody who is watching this video at this time to feel free to come down here to the Lucero Library so that we could possibly live stream, us playing games. I mean, I'm not the best player. I mean, I know I'm confident in my abilities, but I know that I've played some great players, and some I've lost, some I've won. But that's the only way you learn in life, is by learning by being around people that know more than you. People that are smarter than you. They say if you're the smartest person in your group, you need to find a different group. Because we've always wanted to surround ourselves with people that think like us and dream like us, and they're searching and striving for something greater in life, like many of us. And so that's how I kind of relate the game of chess with the game of life, because before we can make that move, it's always best to kind of take a step back and weigh out, the risk and the consequences, because do you want to be an asset or do you want to be a liability? It's my experience has been with gangs, and in with gangs, I kind of relate like the game of chess. It's kind of like it's me and my gang against them and their gang, and basically you can put it in perspective like that if that's how you want to look at it. And then so you want to turn around and ask yourself, well, I'm challenging my opponent here, and my opponent's challenging me. So what I'm trying to do is outthink, my opponent, whereas my opponent is trying to outthink me. The most fascinating thing about the game of chess is that it requires for you to think for yourself. And that's where a lot of these youngsters, fail to realize that, it's if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, and they fail to realize that how much of our thinking power we give away by just kind of giving into peer pressure and stuff like that, as opposed to just taking a step back and deciding for yourself, is this the path, is this the path I want to go, and things of that nature, and there's growing up here in this neighborhood, I see a lot of things over at the skate park that, kind of take me back down memory lane and things like that. And so, you know, I try to do the best in which I can as far as trying to, work with some of these youngsters, and offer my experience as far as like with gangs and things like that, because I know how they operate and I know how they think. And the way I'm figure is like, if you can outthink me and outsmart me and outwit me, then I may just go with what you're asking me to go with, But if you can't outthink me, then I'm probably just going to trust my own best judgment, because again, like I said, it basically boils down to the choices and decisions in which we make in life, because they can either alter or they can shape, our future, and you definitely don't want to ruin your life by hanging around with people that have no kind of ambition or no kind of drive, and And I'm just the type that likes to just keep it real with individuals, and I'm more so myself when I'm here in person, and I'm just trying to get comfortable in front of the camera because it's something that's a little nerve wracking at times and things like that. So I'm just bear with me. I'm still getting used to it, and every day in which we continue to do this is another day that in which I learn something new about technology and how and where it's advancing, where it's going. Because I'm not too computer savvy and things of that nature, but I'm willing to at least admit that. But I'm always willing to learn. Always being willing to become a sponge for knowledge and absorb and soak a lot of that up from what the people around you have to offer. But with that, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and bore you guys, anymore. And I wanted to ask you guys if you guys have any questions, to feel free to, swing by the Lucero Library, and I'd be more than willing to, touch base with you guys. I'm usually here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from 3 to 5, and also on Fridays doing the live streaming. But on the other days, I'm usually here. If there's individuals coming here, I'm usually working with them or whatnot. Because of this COVID thing, it kind of got everything, you know, just going through changes and things like that. But with that, you guys are welcome to come down to the Lucero Library during this time frame if you guys would love to be able to play a game. I mean, I welcome all, who want to play, who have a fascination with playing with chess because like I tell the youngsters, the best thing about this game chess is that it requires for you to think for yourself. And that's where they fail to realize it because they say it's hard. Well, you want to know why it's hard? Because it requires for you to think for yourself, you know. And so don't, be swift to, give your thinking power away to just anybody, And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out and wish you guys the best of luck. Thank you. Damn.
I'm sorry.